I do want to say that Andy Runzi is not Superman, but I have a picture of him dressed like Superman if anybody would like to see. Superman, Batman, I got a Robin, Coach Bunch was Robin, so Miss Fisher was Wonder Woman, so we had a lot of superheroes here. And the reason I bring that up is because Renaissance was has always been such an important part of Herculaneum High School, and Miss Aylesworth and Mr. Runzi, when he was the assistant principal, really worked hard to keep that going and make it really good for the kids. And I think that's something that we do really well here at Herculaneum High School. So thank you, Miss Aylesworth and Mr. Runzi, for getting that started, and thank you for wearing shorts over your Batman suit. I was going to say something else. It'll just get me in trouble, so I can't really get in trouble anymore. Dr. Crypto, you don't even yell at me. I love it. When I first got here, Andy and I we talk about tradition, we talk about what's important to kids, and how things like the Hall of Fame and things like the Victory Bell, those things, how important they were. Not only, and I know I'm going to speak for Andy here, but I can speak for myself, and probably about half the people in this room or more. Probably the best time of your life and the most important thing you ever did was strap on, you know, Mr. Hunter back there, when you strapped on that helmet with Coach Helms, you felt like you were part of something. And I can say the same thing when I played basketball. Andy and I shared a basketball coach, even though I'm several years older, as you can tell, than Andy. We shared a basketball coach. And I still take great pride in being part of that Crystal City basketball tradition. Don't throw anything at me, Coach Helms, I know. But I take great pride in that. And I think that if I ask you to play baseball for Mr. Runzi, or you played football, you'd say the same thing, because that gave you a feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that's what this Hall of Fame is about. Because we talked about it over and over, many times. Sometimes drinking cherry wine, sometimes not, just drinking sweet tea. And he'd make me listen to that stupid song, and he knows country songs. But I listen, because I don't like a lot of people, but that guy I really like. So I listen to country music just for him. So I just want to make this short. I know people at that table will probably say too late, but I'm going to move on. But the important thing was how important this was, not only for the kids at school, but the kids as they moved on to their life in the community. The idea of this Blackcat Hall of Fame and things like that. And Andy was great about it, because Andy just said, you should get it going. You take care of it, run with it, and do it. And I won't ever take full credit for it, because without, you know, Miss Springmeyer and the Dugans and all these other people that were involved, that it wouldn't be what it is today. It's 11 years, and I still feel like it's one of the best Hall of Fame things you could possibly be a part of. And so it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of the Hall of Fame. But it's even more of an honor and a privilege to be here because it's Andy Runzi. And like I said, I don't like a lot of people, but this guy I like. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say three things, and I'll stop, because I promise you the speakers who will come after me will be more eloquent than I, and they'll do a better job. But I have to get this out, because if I don't, I feel like I didn't give the boss everything he deserved. First of all, probably no one in this room is more uncomfortable than Andy Runzi right now, because Andy Runzi hates these things with a passion. All right? He hates them. He is so uncomfortable, and when he gets uncomfortable, it makes me laugh. I love it. But the reason he's very uncomfortable, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but Andy is the kind of guy that would stand here and say, he doesn't really care who gets the credit. He just wants success for everybody. If you played for Andy, or you worked for Andy, or you were just friends with Andy, that dude's a competitor. He wants to compete. He wants to win just like everybody else. But he really cares about people. And when he cares about people, he doesn't like to take the credit. He doesn't want that. And I respect that more than I can even know, because a lot of people are loud and obnoxious, myself most of the time. But the thing about Andy, and I think if we put up there on that sign anything, a man of many hats was a good one, but I would have probably picked a great teammate, and I think Andy would probably be more proud of that than anything else in his life, other than his children, his wife, and his family. So that's one thing. Secondly, and I think this is very important, Andy, and I want to put this delicately, I'm not going to say anything too off color, I promise, but Andy is one of those guys that he has always been the person in the room that I know that is the most genuine person I've ever met, more often than not. When Andy Runzi's in a room, he's usually the best in that room. He's genuine, and he gets that from his mom and dad. If you talk to them, you know what I'm talking about. because he's a genuine guy, and I appreciate the genuineness because there's not a lot of BS when it comes to Andy Runzi, and I appreciate that. And then my last thing, I promise I'm done. I'll move on very quickly. But the last thing is, Andy Runzi was a great coach. Great coach. If you're making a list of the great coaches, and some of them are in this room in Jefferson County, Andy Runzi better be on your list, because if he's not, then your list ain't worth a dang. That's how I feel. Same thing with Coach Helms and Coach Casson, and a lot of people in our Blackcat Hall of Fame. So, but he's a great teacher. He was a great administrator. He was a great boss. And I'm sure if Mr. Thomas was here, he'd say he's a great employee. But the thing about Andy that's different and special, and what matters the most, of all those things that he's great at, he is a better person than he is any of those other things. I'm not going to cry. But I feel like Coach Casson. I'm just Coach Casson here. And that's the thing that I like about Andy, and his lovely wife Debbie, and his 3 great kids. I challenge you to talk to his kids and not walk away impressed. And the reason you walk away impressed is because those people made him into good people. And that's important, and that's probably the most important thing that Andy's ever done.
I had the privilege of working with Andy. I used to tease him and tell him, Andy, you are the oldest young man that I know. He was always so serious. So we balanced each other, because he can tell you, you were probably the most immature old woman that I know. And so we were a good balance, but I enjoyed working with him because I knew that Andy always had my back. No matter how dumb, whatever it was I decided to do, I knew he was there for me. And I know that all the young men in this room feel the same way about him. And even I don't know if there's any young women here that had him in high school, but I know you feel that same way too.
He has truly done this and has asked nothing in return except for the same level of commitment of yourself that he has put into you. As a friend, student, assistant, parent, you name it, whatever the guy does, he's committed to you. And all he asks from you is that you commit to yourself as much as he believes in you. And then accolades. You know, he's all-conference district and state player, coach of the year, member of the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame. The list goes on and on and on. One I do want to kind of point out and kind of speak to is he was an all-Metro punter. Anybody know that? Coach Runzi, Coach Helms, of course, right? Coach Thompson, he was a punter, right? You look at this guy. Does he look like a punter? So I'm going to tell you a story. My sophomore year, of course, we're always looking for kickers and punters, right? Because they don't exist in Jefferson County. At least they didn't in my 4 years, right? So guys like me, Alex Rugley, I think Mitchell was conned into coming over there for a second. We're all over there, football field practice, special teams time, and it's time to find a punter. And Coach Runzi's our special teams coach, and he's the all-Metro punter. We didn't know this at the time. But he's starting to tell us, you know, this is what you do. Here's your technique. You catch the ball. You go through the motions. You want to point it down, kick the side of it, get it to spin, so on and so forth. And he's like, all right, let's go ahead and try this. Well, we're all shanking everything everywhere. I mean, it's embarrassing. And I'm standing there like, I don't even know why I'm over here, Coach. I was like, I cannot kick. And he's like, come on, guys, it ain't that hard. And we're like, well, you go ahead and show us how to do it if it ain't that hard. He goes, well, I was an all-Metro punter, just so you know. So here it goes. He stands there, takes the height, takes his 2 steps, goes to the kick. Next thing you know, bam, special team practice over. Coach can't walk. He's laying on the ground. But of all the accolades out there, I mean, think about it. There's just little things that everything this guy touches is successful in some way, shape, or form. Just so you know, he did end up getting up. The next day, we found Alex Rugley, and Alex put us in some good spots as a punter because Coach was able to mentor him into it. Rob, the quote you were looking for is, it's amazing what can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. This was our motto that my class was taught to live by under the guidance of Coach. It's still a quote that we speak of and attempt to live out in our daily adult lives, families, and careers. I mean, when I see Robert Mitchell, might not see him for a year, I run into the guy. That's one of the things we talk about, is it's amazing what can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. And the man doesn't ever say I. He taught us how to use the words we, us, ours. You won't hear him say I, me, any of that, right? It's because he does not need the credit. So when he taught us to live by that, it wasn't because it was just a quote that he found in a book and thought it was cool and repeated it. It's because he did it every day and still does. It's often said, and it was known by Coach to be a way of life, but as I said, not for the glory, but for the positive impact you can make on others around you. Plan, prepare, and execute is another thing we heard often, huh, Mikey? All day, every day, right? Plan, prepare, and execute. That was our momentary, daily, weekly, monthly, and season goal. Really, it was a recipe to success in life, okay? He basically instilled in us the importance of having a plan, being prepared to carry it out, and then making the right efforts and the decisions to execute that plan. You wake up every day, it's a 9-inning day to me, because this man taught me that. I wake up, inning number 1 is make sure I get up on time. Inning number 2 is get out of the house on time. Inning number 3 is make sure I'm prepared for my 25-minute drive from my house to the office on what I'm going to get accomplished that day. The next inning, the next inning, the next inning, and the 9th inning is that I kiss my kid and my wife goodnight before I fall asleep. I know I don't do it every night, babe, but I try, right? You can't win every inning, but if you win more innings than you lose, you end up winning the game. As a college baseball coach myself, and there's several other coaches I played for, current coaches, we all know that, you know, when a kid comes back, I say a kid, I still think I'm a kid to him, but when players come back that you coached years later, could be years and years later, and they still use that phrase, coach, that's a great honor. You know, I coached in the collegiate level for 6 years, helped out at the 253 for a couple summers, and every time I still see people or get Facebook messages in today's world from people I coached at Bellarmine, it's still coach. That means something. That name resonates with what you're trying to accomplish in that role. He has earned the respect from my coworkers now. So if you come to Thomas Industrial Coatings and say, can I speak with Andy Runzi, they're going to wonder who you're talking about, if it's an employee at Thomas. And that's because when he first was coming in to get hired on, we'd be in meetings, and me, Dane McGraw, Josh Tuttleton, Ricky Simpson, John Lewis, Josh Tuttleton, Brock Tuttleton, I mean, all these people from our community that he coached, we'd be in the middle of a meeting or a business meeting, and I'd say, hey, yeah, coach will handle that. And everybody's like, who's that? And it just kind of kept coming and kept coming. Well, now everybody in our business calls him coach. That's just who he is, right? And at first, he, as we often do, he pulls me off to the side and he said, you know, this whole coach thing, not quite sitting well with me, you know? I mean, A, it's kind of disrespectful. I mean, the man's technically a doctor, right? So it probably should be Dr. Andy Runzi or something like that. But he's like, you know, I just feel like maybe that this company or people within this company are going to look at me and think, you know, give me credit that maybe I not do. I want to earn my way in this place, and I don't want to be, you know, Donnie's friend and all your guys' coaches, and that's why I'm here, right? But that's the testament to the man on why we call him coach. My freshman year, I'm on the varsity team of baseball. We got older kids playing, so I'm in the dugout. I usually hung out by the coaches so I could try to pick up on things and learn and whatnot. Somebody makes an error, ball goes in the outfield, other kid picks it up, goes to throw it in, overthrows the cutoff man, and next thing you know, I hear this next to my head. Because that coach stood on this side of the 4x4 pole, and I stood on this side. And I looked over, and there's knuckle marks in there, and his nostrils are about as wide as his ears, man. That's the day that I learned passion is positive. Not every moment do you have to say the right thing, do you have to react the right way. You just have to care enough that it ends up being positive. So how did it end up being positive in that moment? He turned and looked at me and said, you better control your emotions a hell of a lot better than I just did. You understand me? Bottom line is he's a good listener, right? As an administrator, all you guys know, you got to go to football games, go administer basketball games. You got to go do all this stuff that, quite frankly, you don't get paid well enough for, period, right? But you do it because you're charitable of your time. And Coach has always just been ears open. Still to this day, people just go in his office for some reason and flock in there and he just sits there and listens. Sometimes that's being charitable with your time. I'm not good at it at all, but I send him to his office when somebody needs to have the moment of release. Don't come and talk to Josh. I got things to do. Go talk to Coach, right? So I've been working on that one still, Coach. But as far as charitable as well, I think we would be, I would be failing if I didn't mention the fact that Coach has a great family, starting with Tom and Sue, but then his immediate, his family and Debbie and the 3 Ks, perfect inning of Kylie, Caitlin, and Kendall. If I didn't mention you guys and
It's all right, man.
And thank you for your time. I remember when you were all born. I was here for Kylie more than any of it, but you know, Kylie was born the next day. The man's on a bus to go to a game. Crazy, but that's who he is. He's committed to what he's supposed to be doing. And at that point in time, he was supposed to be coaching, so he's going to go coach. But you guys have always allowed him to do it. I appreciate it. I think everyone in this room does. And without you, we wouldn't have the man we call coach, in my opinion. So thank you. If you can give them a round of applause. Ended kind of with a quote here. A good coach can change a game, but a great coach can change a life. Coach, thanks for changing many of us in here, our lives. We appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that we present the newest member of Herculaneum High School Hall of Fame, Dr. Andrew Runzi, Coach.
I think the biggest word that comes to my mind right now is thank you. You know, you don't realize the impact you have a lot of times, and when I look out and see the faces that I see out here, everything's a memory to me. There's something I can tie to each one of you, and I'm appreciative of it. You know, I look over here and see man of many hats. One of them I don't see up there is one thing you need to be if you're going to coach at Herculaneum, that's a good groundskeeper. And with that being said, Coach Thompson and I logged many hours on those walk behinds when we were here. But I tell you what it did do. Our players took pride in the place. They walked, they saw what was going on, they respected that. And I think we live in a community where people truly respect hard work. And it's not often, at times, it's what you say, it's what you do that matters the most. So thank you to Dr. Bradshaw. You know, Rob and I we've shared many nights together and talking about things, talking about life and talking about what success was and those type of things. And you know, it's one thing to work with somebody, but it's another thing to work with a good friend, and I always value that. Mrs. Sobel, you know, you're always in the background doing what you do, and please don't take this the wrong way. I was told a long time ago there's show horses and plow horses. And you're a very pretty plow horse. You know, I always told Dr. Bradshaw I felt like this Hall of Fame was reserved for a select few people that put their heart and soul, sweat into the students, the facilities, the programs, and the communities. I'm honored to be thought of in this category, and to be honest with you, I'm still not convinced that I qualify. I think about the people that are in here, and I think of there's so many names that come back to me. J.L. Hortons, you know, Stan Helms, T.J. Springmeyer. You know, I think back of Coach Helms leaving football practice and getting his tools out of his van at that point in time and going up and building stuff for the homecoming. You know, I still think one of the coolest things that's ever happened here, and if you remember it, then you remember something special. When the prom was up on the hill and all those different people came together and built the floor, built it. And then the tent went up and the parents came in and we cooked steaks. I think there was carriage rides and all those different things. When we were in Jeff City, I was walking through an English class. We did what you call walkthroughs. I think some of you in here know what those are. 5-minute walks, whatever. What do we call them now?
Walkthrough observation.
Okay. We changed things a lot, Coach Thompson. I was walking through an English class where a very good English teacher was giving an assignment. And the assignment was as follows. Pretend you are a bowl of soup. The ingredients in your bowl of soup are what make you you. The ingredients symbolize the people you met in your travels and who have shaped your thoughts, actions, and beliefs. Some of these ingredients make the soup taste good, some make it taste not so good. Some make the soup taste spicy, while others may taste bland, but are necessary part of the mix. What ingredient and how much of it is determined by you and only you. Write down the recipe for your soup and explain in detail its ingredients. I always remember that lesson and have reflected on it many times. I've thought of it a lot more lately and realized my bowl of soup is not perfect. I also realize some ingredients are more subtle than others. Mr. Robert Evans was Bobby and I's bus driver when I was in school. He passed away in 2014 at the age of 96. He was a World War II veteran. His son, Dr. Ron Evans, is a member of this Hall of Fame. My sister and I were his first stop. Melissa were the first stop for Mr. Evans each morning. He would pick us up on Scenic Drive down number 1 Fairway. We were the only ones on the bus until we got to the number 9 tee box. He was no nonsense, but always took the time to talk to us about our grades and what we had going on in school. And I can remember him saying just before I got my license how important it was to be responsible when you drive a car. What a first-class life. I went to elementary school at Roy E. Taylor, where you could hear our principal, Mr. Freeman, walk down the hall. He could quiet the entire building. He had a limp and he dragged his foot, and you knew he was there. My classmates and I were under the care of lifelong teachers, Mrs. Raymer, Mrs. Eichenberger, and Mrs. Short, to name a few. Mrs. Funston taught us how to square dance and had a paddle as long as she was hung next to our door. We never saw her use it, but we always knew it was there. In middle school at St. Thomas, Mr. Jarvis was our principal. I was glad to have Miss Skinner and Miss Buckhead as my teachers. Mr. Dugan taught my favorite class, PE. We played a lot of floor hockey and dodgeball, which are 2 activities outlawed in public education. More importantly, he told us the stories of former black kids who set the bar. We learned about John Wayne Kinder and Butch Copeland in football, Bruce Thomas in basketball, and we heard how Ronnie Shai could hit a baseball. He made us feel like we were going to be part of something special. In high school, I was fortunate enough to have teachers who demanded more to me than I thought I could give. Mick Hart was that type of teacher. I learned how to work hard in the classroom. He made learning difficult and interesting and fun. Dr. Gray was our band teacher. Even though he called me into the hallway in 7th grade and told me to find something else to do besides band, to occupy my time, I always admired the excellence demanded and received out of his students. The coaches I was fortunate enough to play for have made a lifelong impact. I use their lessons daily. Coach Stan Helms taught us if you want to be successful, you must out-prepare your competition. There's no substitute for hard work. We learned from Coach Rich Borman, if you're going to do something, do it with energy and passion. He used to tell us the guy in the front of the line usually gets the most attention. Coach Rolla Herbert, who was an excellent psychology teacher, would put his hand on your shoulder and look you straight in the eye when he was talking to you. He gave you his undivided attention. Coach Rick Hart taught us you must convince yourself you were great before you could be great. Most games are won before they're ever played. What great lessons to teach a future teacher and a coach. I realized how fortunate I was to have the friends and teammates I had in school and still have today. They have gone on to be very successful in their lives. They're teachers, coaches, principals, superintendents, police officers, police chiefs, federal probation officers, business people, and religious leaders. When you start your own teaching career, you take the lessons you have learned and apply them in your own way. Some would refer to this as the art of teaching. I started my career with many of the people I grew up with, one being the best man at my wedding, Bob Thompson. Bob and I first met in a YMCA basketball game when we were in elementary school, playing a game at Douglas Gym in Festus. A loose ball hit the floor, and we both got there at the same time. The referee separated us. We growled at each other a little bit. I guess that was a premonition of things to come. We went on and played 3 sports together through middle school and high school. We played college baseball together, and then came back to Herculaneum as teachers and coaches. Charlie Stiegel, Pat Burns, Butch Patterson, Ken Huddleston, Al Bullico were all young teachers as well. Most days our enthusiasm far outweighed our common sense. Four of the gentlemen mentioned are principals, athletic directors, or superintendents today, and would probably look at that group as a big headache. Later, I was blessed to coach baseball with Matt Bunch and Dale Dunn. I think we won 3 district titles with that coaching staff. We were blessed to coach enthusiastic, hardworking, intelligent young men who did as they were asked to do from the coaching staff and from one another. A lot of times we weren't the most talented group, but we always made up with it with our competitive nature. I often look back on that coaching tenure and the lesson I'd learned from those days. I realized there's no greater opportunity to impact the life of a young person than in a competitive team environment. You learn the skills of winning graciously, dealing with failure, working together, and using each other's strengths to accomplish goals. People always ask me if I miss coaching, and I truly do. I don't miss the games. I guess I'm flawed in that way. I never really liked winning as much as I just hated losing. If I could go back, I would take more time to enjoy the wins and look around to see what was happening. What I miss the most is the process of competing as a team and working towards winning. I miss I miss the starting point and everyone buying into the end. I miss the practice. When you walk away from coaching, you hope that the tools that have been provided to you by the coaches I played for were given to the people when you coach them as well. Excuse me. As an administrator, your decisions impact more people, but a lot of times they're not near as personal. It's often asked of me if I miss education, and there are things that I do miss. My favorite time of the day is when I was a high school principal and being in the cafeteria during breakfast. It was a chance to talk to students on a personal level and possibly help them set the tone for their day. It was a chance to interact with students you knew were hurting and let them know you cared. Education has changed tremendously in the last 10 years, but a lot of it hasn't changed. One thing I know, if you want a student to succeed, you must take care of their basic needs. They must have an environment where they're structured, they feel safe, and the people in that environment care for them. When these basics are in place, student achievement can take place. This past fall, when it was announced I was going into the Hall of Fame, Mr. Root invited me and my family to be introduced prior to the Friday night football game, and Mark Coleman read a list of personal achievements and team achievements for my introduction. And I felt proud and flattered. But before I went to bed that night, I thought to myself, man, I sure hope I accomplished more than that. For the longest time, I thought the definition of success was about winning the next challenge. It was winning a big game, a conference championship, a district championship, and more. As an administrator, you let conversations about AYP, ACT, APR often drive your conversations. Personally, it was about winning a starting position, a postseason honor, a college scholarship, or earning a graduate degree. I used to think that is how being successful was defined, and I guess in a lot of ways it is. Maybe more importantly, the accolades represent the relationships that were developed along the way. I have friends I have today because of those opportunities. I even met my wife from a competitive opportunity. And this is the story of Mrs. Young. In 1994, Ms. Young was a first-year Spanish teacher and a junior varsity volleyball coach at Herculaneum. She was a former student of Mark Sobel's, who was a football coaching colleague of mine and self-appointed matchmaker. He let it be known that we may have interest in one another. After a football practice one day, several of the players and I went upstairs to watch the volleyball game. And one of our players, Ricky Husky, was giving me the business and telling me to ask her out after the game. I told him only if she wins. They won the game and I asked her out. We went to Applebee's and 6 weeks later we were engaged. We didn't have to be, we were engaged. We were married the next June. If one of our daughters does that, I'm not sure what would happen. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be speaking with you this evening. So how does a person define success? Maybe it goes back to the bowl of soup I mentioned earlier. I know my core ingredients for success in my life have always been my family and friends. My parents have been a consistent role model for hard work and putting their family first. My dad has always provided me with a great gift, and that is the example of being a man. It's not that it's always what he says, though he says a lot, but what he does that made me what he does that has made the greatest impact on me. Always consistent in his principles and values, but he would be the first to tell you he would not be half the man he is without my mom. She's a great example of what it means to be a genuine and kind person. She taught me to do the right thing, even when the right thing isn't popular. My wife Debbie, I guess it was more part of God's plan, because how we started doesn't necessarily make sense to most. We've raised 3 beautiful, intelligent, and strong-willed young women in Kylie, Caitlin, and Kendall, and most of the credit belongs to you. Since I've been out of education, I've come to realize how good my wife is at her career as a school counselor. She's always poised and professional. She provides a sense of calm during chaotic times, and that is at her best when everything else seems to unravel. I've also concluded success is not about who you spend your time with. I've been blessed to have great friends that share the same core values of faith, family, and hard work. I've been lucky enough to have mentors: Pat Bone, Dr. Shelton Smith, Don Thomas are at the top of that list. Coach Bone's love for baseball and life have always inspired me to be better and to learn more. Dr. Shelton Smith, who passed away this winter, he handed me my high school diploma and later handed me my diploma for earning my doctorate. He always had time, or he made time. Don Thomas, he's passionate about people. He has a true servant's heart. The people who make up Team Thomas and Thomas Industrial Coatings, what a great team to be on. I've been away from the Dunklin R-5 school system since 2009, but there are many memories still very vivid in my mind. Just a few: the Herculaneum McKinley basketball game in 1986, 1987 St. John football game, Timmy Wells versus Bo Kennedy in 1986, 11-inning game consisting of 41 strikeouts, a 2-1 ball game, the Warrenton football game in 1995, the 1999 baseball team all year long. Josh Tettleton bringing his knee back and rushing for 320 yards in a football game against Park Hills. And still, one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed as an educator, as a person, was watching Mike Perez win the state cross-country championship in 1995. As educators, it's human nature to stand next to the best and brightest, but perhaps the best work often goes unnoticed. There are other memories that didn't make the paper, but we will never be able to measure their impact. For example, the pride of Doug Smelser and his band, Cody Lott winning the prom king his senior year, Mrs. Schomburg teaching the literacy class at our high school, Bill Hammond working with the students under his care, the impact of the Renaissance program, the efforts of the custodians in the food service, Josh Thomas and Robert Mitchell during the practice, and all the countless conversations with the students each and every day. If I have one regret, is that I didn't take the time to say thank you enough along the way. The school and community have provided me with enough memories, friendships, opportunities to last 2 lifetimes. For that, I will always be grateful. Thank you.
Well, I do want to take this time just one more to say thank you to all the Hall of Famers that showed up tonight. Thank you to the administration, cooks, and thank you to the ladies who decorated, Miss Sobel and Miss Fisher, and I forgot Miss LaPointe last time, so I want to make sure she was here to decorate as well. So, thank you very much, really appreciate it, and chicken fries, that stupid song that I can't remember. I'm not even sure what that's all about. I listened to it like 100 times, and I don't like it any more than the 100 that I did first. So thank you for coming. Have a great and safe ride home. One more time, Dr. Andrew Runzi.